Let's turn to you for the first 5 minutes to introduce the bill.
Great. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Ranking Member Grijalva, and members of the subcommittee. Thank you for the opportunity for me to share my thoughts on the importance of Congressman Meadows' legislation, H.R. 3806, the Great Smoky Mountains National Park Agreement of 2013. I want to tell a story about a small community in the mountains of North Carolina, the Appalachian region. Swain County, less than 10,000 people live in the community. Talking about dedication for the 1943 agreement to build the Lake Fontana. It was their dedication to help supply energy sources to the eastern part of Tennessee to be able to help build military planes for World War II. It was that dedication that they gave up their land, they gave up their home sites, their schools, their businesses, and left their grave sites of their loved ones behind. With an agreement of North Carolina, TVA, Swain County, and the Department of Interior, they flooded the land and created Fontana Lake Reservoir. Fontana Dam is still one of the largest dams east of the Mississippi, supplying energy for the TVA. When these individuals left the community and traveled and dispersed elsewhere, they were given an agreement that they would have a road built to replace NC 288 so they could go revisit the home sites and grave sites of their loved ones. That agreement was supposed to build this some 35-mile road into the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. That agreement still today has a community divided. Whether or not we should pay for a settlement or to build this road. Up until 2001, the appropriations triggered the National Environmental Policy Act, analyzing several options, including the completion of this road, an estimated $700 million, or cutting through the pristine Great Smoky Mountain National Park, or a monetary settlement. The National Park Service published a final environmental impact statement on October 2nd, 2007, which said that it would advocate a financial settlement in lieu of the construction of the road. A record of decision followed shortly, calling the monetary settlement to Swain County of $52 million as Swain County as the National Park Service agency preferred alternative. With the support of both North Carolina and the Tennessee delegations, we secured $12.8 million, a partial settlement for the North Shore Road Agreement in the fiscal year 2010 through the Department of Defense Appropriations Act. In February 10th, a sign ceremony attended by Secretary Salazar, 4 parties agreed to the settlement, calling for a $52 million settlement to Swain County to be paid out over a period of years. And this trust that Swain County gave, once again, to the federal government and to keeping up their end of the bargain. But yet we find ourselves still asking for the remaining balance of the $52 million. I want to give you the statement that Secretary Salazar gave during this ceremony in Swain County. It is not often that we can end a 67-year controversy with a stroke of a pen, but that's exactly what we are doing. The federal government is providing a fair settlement to the people of Swain County while ensuring the protection of the Great Smoky Mountain National Park. And a further press release that they gave says Secretary Salazar noted that the settlement is good for the people of Swain County because it generates much-needed revenue. And not only was this reservoir Fontana Lake taken in consideration, but it folded in the Great Smoky Mountain National Park, so it leaves that county with 83% federally owned land. So we have a low tax base. Again, Swain County was there was an authorization in the Appropriations Act of 2012 for $4 million, and through a technicality, that money is still sitting there today, has not been released to Swain County. I commend now my Congressman, Mark Meadows, for his continued effort and his work and his dedication to the people of Swain County and to the people of that region to be able to give back to that community. They have honored their agreement, and it's time for the federal government to continue to honor its agreement and pay the money that's so needed for a community in Swain County. Mr. Chairman, I yield back, and I thank you for the opportunity for you and the ranking member Grahava for allowing me to be here and testify and ask for your consideration and movement of this legislation.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Appreciate you being here. Now we'll tag team back to Representative Meadows.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To follow up, I want to thank Congressman Heath Shuler for not giving up. On January 2nd, when he was leaving office, his staff diligently was working to try to correct an injustice. And where is the injustice? $4 million was appropriated and has sit there and sits there and sits there and is yet to be paid to the people of Swain County. And we have worked diligently for the last 14 months trying to make sure that this money gets released. We have a GAO report. Mr. Chairman, I would ask that we submit this GAO report for the record.
So ordered.
This GAO report shows that indeed that under their guidelines that it is certainly within the rights of the Department of Interior to release these funds and to actually pay on this commitment. And yet, in talking to the comptroller, he has indicated that without an act of Congress, that this money is going to continue to sit there. Now, to put this in context, the original obligation to build this road was estimated to be $700 million, and yet the settlement was just a fraction of that. And yet Swain County has gotten just a fraction of that. And so I would like to offer two other pieces of information for the record. One is the press release that Congressman Heath Shuler mentioned, which Secretary Salazar announces the settlement on the North Shore Road. And the other is the memo of understanding, which has all the appropriate parties where they had signed on to this particular agreement. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. To go on further, this is the residents of Swain County in the heat of the battle of World War II did like most Americans did. They sacrificed. They said, sure, we're willing to be part of a greater effort to make sure that this was identified and the land was given up, and yet some 83% of their land is now in federal lands. Their unemployment is still hovers above 10%. And all they're wanting is for the American government, the federal government, to do what they said they would do. Going back to 1943, that obligation of building a road was never committed. Then now in 2010, an agreement was reached, a settlement of some $52 million, of part of which had been paid. But then we had another $4 million appropriated. And yet it continues to sit there. It is our understanding that H.R. 3806, being the authorization to release those funds, is what is now being required. We humbly ask for the consideration of this committee to approve this so that we can get the payment given to the residents of Swain County and that justice and fairness can once again prevail. And I stand ready for any questions, Mr. Chairman.